As June 5th quickly approaches, the Nintendo Switch 2 news cycle is not slowing down, and we actually have some great news for anybody out there still on the hunt for the console today, because it sounds like a lot of retailers are having in-store inventory with a full outline of exactly how you can purchase them in case you are somebody who has not secured a pre-order or you need a console for a loved one yet. Then we have a whole host of new pieces of information we have not had up to this point in time, such as a protective film that is on the Nintendo Switch 2 screen that you might want to know about before potentially trying to peel it off, which would be problematic. We have some new load time comparisons from a specific development company showing off just how quick Nintendo Switch 2 can load Switch 1 games when updated via a patch. We also have a warning for the hacker community out there, as this is rumor territory, but it is possible that you can render your Switch 2 useless pretty easily if you do a couple specific things to try to hack it. And it kind of opens up a broad conversation about how strict Nintendo may be this console generation to try to stop their games and stuff from leaking out early. There's a whole debate online about just how involved Nintendo's going to be in Summer Game Fest, and there's some clarification around it that it's more significant than it has been in the past, so I want to revisit that and a couple small updates, one of which having to do with the Gamechat registration situation, and lastly, a rumor that suggests that via data mining, custom music might be supported in select Switch 2 games. So we're going to unpack all of these details, but before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here, and stick around for a quick word from today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Huel, and this one is actually exciting for me. Huel Black Edition is a complete meal that's ready in under 60 seconds and starts at just $2.65 per meal. You get everything your body needs: proteins, carbs, healthy fats, fiber, and 26 essential vitamins and minerals all in one shake. My personal go-to is their iced coffee flavor, which is absolutely delicious, but they have pre-bottled, ready-to-drink options with various different flavors, as well as a scoop option that you just add to water, and chocolate's my go-to flavor for that. But Huel is smooth, filling, and perfect when I'm rushing between tasks. Whether I'm at my desk, packing for the gym, or just too busy to cook, it's fast, it's clean, and it actually keeps me full. And it's not just a protein shake, it's a real meal. 40 grams of protein, all the healthy fats and fiber and micronutrients you need to perform at your best. If you want to eat better without thinking about it too much, give Huel a shot. Help support the brands that support me, and click the link in the pinned comment and description down below, or scan the QR code on screen for 15% off with my code. And this is, in my opinion, one of the easiest upgrades you can make to your daily routine. So big thank you to Huel for sponsoring today's video. All right, and I want to first kick off this conversation right over at X with a roundup of what's going on at retailers in terms of day one launch stock, because if you do not have a Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order yet, or you need an additional one for another friend, family member, or loved one, well, you're not out of luck, and it seems like we're going to have a lot of options whenever it comes to walking into a retailer and getting a console on launch day, or even a midnight launch in some cases. So first piece of advice is follow this man that we are on the tweet of right now, Jake Randall, the GOAT of Switch 2 pre-order restock. All thing console restocks this individual is on top of, and he has kind of the breakdown of exactly what we want to look at here. So current Switch 2 launch day availability if you do not have a pre-order yet, and the details and instructions are linked in part 2 of the thread. Target in-store only, open on June 5th, no online orders until June 6th. GameStop is doing a 3 p.m. This is very important. You have to show up at 3 p.m. local time, probably before that, just to be safe, on June 4th. Then you come back to pick up at midnight Eastern time, also selling online at midnight Eastern time. So wherever you are at, in my case, I'm Central Time, I would show up at 11 p.m. at GameStop, not midnight. So you want to know that, and you want to actually get there on June 4th, the day before the console launches, in order to submit for your pre-order. Then you got to come back that night to pick it up. Best Buy is doing in-store at midnight Eastern time as well on June 4th. Going into June 5th, online availability is currently unknown. Check around midnight and 1 a.m. Eastern time. So Best Buy apparently is going to have 2 separate lines. They're going to have, like, for your in-store pickup, where you already have a console pre-ordered for the midnight launch, like I will be showing up to at my local Best Buy. Then you're going to have consoles set aside for day one inventory at the midnight launch, where you do not have to have a pre-order. Walmart is limited stock, in-store and open on June 5th. Online availability unknown. Check at midnight Eastern time, and he's got full video updates on all of these things with some more detailed tips and tricks that you're going to want to know. So I will have this tweet linked in my description down below, and it's going to get you to where you need to go if you need to see any more detailed steps on what to do for any of these retailers. But the really good news situation, and it's actually being backed up by this next post you can see from Stealth over on X, where it says this Best Buy received 250 Switch 2s, 200 of them are pre-orders, and 50 for midnight launch / release day rush. So while 50 extra is not like a ton of consoles by any stretch of the imagination, this is just one example of Nintendo not being bare bones on the stock. Like, just because you didn't get a pre-order, the fact that you can still potentially at this point in time get it at a midnight launch, this is a very high launch stock situation compared to what we saw when like the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S launched, and it was really battling for months and months to be able to find one of these consoles. Yes, these will all still sell out, but if you really want one day one, it's not impossible to get one at this point, which is definitely a good news scenario. Great news for anybody out there who's, you know, maybe become more hyped about the console as we've learned more about it and is ready to spend the money now as we get closer to the June 5th launch. So wanted to update you guys on all of that stuff. Then the next thing, and something you might want to know in case if you are unboxing a Switch 2, you're very excited. You notice maybe a thin film on the screen itself. You have this right up over at Nintendo Universo where it says Nintendo Switch 2 has a thin anti-fragmentation protection film applied to its factory screen. Nintendo recommends users not to remove the protection, and all you have to know about this, as there's a little bit more details, but essentially on some of these displays nowadays you have what looks to be like a pre-installed screen protector. If you look really close, there's like actually some kind of film that you can look at and see that you could probably take it off. The thing is, that is a factory applied anti-damage screen protector, so if you do have chips or your screen breaks, it's not just like the glass is not actually falling out or potentially cutting your hands and stuff like that. So the deal is just don't remove it. If you're going to apply a screen protector to your Nintendo Switch 2 console, you want to apply it over that factory screen protector, and that's Nintendo's recommendation, and that's definitely what I would do. The worst thing you could do is be looking really close at your brand new console, you notice that, and you peel it up and something goes wrong because of it. So you've been warned. Nintendo says don't remove it. I'm not going to try to remove it unless you're doing some kind of teardown video. I wouldn't recommend anybody out there to try to remove it. So from there, we do have a really cool update around load times on Nintendo Switch 2. So you have another post from Stealth here where it says Level 5 released a video showing the improved load times on the Switch 2 version of Fantasy Life 1. And you have going from the main menu to playing the game on the Switch was 12 full seconds, and you have it down to 6 seconds on Nintendo Switch 2. So we will just full screen this video real quick, but you have a start time counter, and you can see on the Nintendo Switch on the right versus the Switch 2 on the left, which because of the zoom on my camera, you can't quite see. The Switch 2 edition is on the left, the Switch is on the right. But anyway, that is the difference in just loading in to any of the maps from the main menu. Now this is a game, and the reason I wanted to kind of bring up this conversation, that is getting a performance patch for Switch 2. That's when you should expect to see stuff like this, and when you should not expect to see improvements like this is games that just haven't had any kind of patch worked out for them. The developers do need to actually tell the game how to utilize the more powerful Nintendo Switch 2 hardware. You also have a visual comparison here that they are showing off as well, so we will just quickly look at that. These are the type of upgrades where, you know, it used to look more blurry. It used to be just, you know, it's not a day and night difference, but you can clearly see a higher resolution and frame rate when you're just doing that one-to-one comparison with what we're looking at on screen. So any kind of Switch 2 edition upgrades, some of them will be free, some of them will be paid. When you do have an upgrade available for a Switch 1 game, it is going to look and run better. And that is going to be a cool reason to maybe go back and revisit some of your Switch 1 library that you had some problems with in the past. I know there's some outliers. We need big patches and updates for, you know, Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, no doubt, and even the original Hyrule Warriors with all of the slowdown that hits. You know, Bayonetta 3 pops into mind. Like, there's a lot of different games that had chuggy frame rates that just need more power. Hopefully developers go back and update those, but until they do, don't really expect to see performance improvements. But when they do, expect to see way better load times, visuals, and just smoother frame rate. So pretty nice, cool stuff to see come to fruition here. So from here, we have rumor Nintendo Switch 2, and kind of a warning for the hacking community out there, rumor Nintendo Switch 2 MIG switch attempts and voltage unlock methods crash and render the console unusable. ROM and flash storage modification attempts activate built-in protections that lock down devices and exploits. Okay, so what's going on here? The Nintendo Switch 2 is scheduled to release next month. Actually, we're going to skip that part. According to the commentary, since the system hackers had early access to the Switch 2, several attempts to modify the hardware and software have revealed a robust layer of internal protection on Nintendo's new console. According to the tester reports, whenever specialized tools were used to access the device's ROM chip or flash storage, the Switch 2 immediately crashed, forcing the device into a brick state and then continues a reboot loop. The first documented case involved the use of a MIG switch device to test the Switch 2 access control. Soon after connecting, the console went into brick mode, preventing any further operation. Then other testers who tried to directly solder the ROM chip's flash storage reported a similar result. As soon as the hardware's detected voltage changes, even small ones, caused the scanning tools. The Switch 2's internal system crashed and completely blocked the device. Okay, so what's going on here? GBA Temp, a forum that is very well known in the homebrew and hacking community. There are people, multiple at this point, that are claiming that they had their hands on a Switch 2. They're doing these kind of tests to essentially get ahead of the curve and try to hack this console before it's even out, because we've talked about how retail units are mysteriously going missing, and of course that is leading to a lot of different hacking things already starting to take place with this console. We've seen the required update for backwards compatibility games, and we've seen what the home menu and setup process looks like now and everything like that. And the claim, and the reason this is rumor territory, is that there's not like a for sure proof that's tied to this, but this is a well-known hacker forum, and there's some names on here that apparently are worth paying attention to enough that this is getting circulated. So while this isn't 100% verified, it is very possible that Nintendo has put some wild anti-hacking measures into the Nintendo Switch 2, such as when it recognizes that something is off, or let's say they programmed it to look for the MIG switch itself, which is that flash cartridge that you can load Nintendo Switch games on and actually cycle through a game library. Essentially, without having to have the legit cartridge, you can play backups. That is something that they could have worked out ahead of time, and they know what to look for with the MIG switch and that kind of cartridge switching mechanic it uses. They might know how to look for that now, and they might literally brick your console if you try to use one, and or if you make any voltage changes or anything that they detect as unusual, where there used to be a way into the Switch OS with that kind of stuff as exploits. Nintendo might just basically shut down the console, get it in a boot loop, turn it into a brick on you. That is a very real possibility. It doesn't mean that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to remain unhackable, but their security out of the gate, if this is true, is probably way more robust than it was on the Switch 1, and it's probably going to be a lot harder for them to hack the console. Now, in long term, I think homebrew and running custom software on your console is awesome. I'm not going to want to do that out of the gate brand new, and I actually, from a consumer standpoint, prefer for games not to leak out way early, like whenever we've talked about at numerous times warnings for spoilers of end of games that you're looking forward to for years. Tears of the Kingdom, you can't go buy it yet, but it's being circulated, ROM dumped online, and you have to worry about seeing the ending of the game before you've even had an opportunity to boot it up. This is a real thing that happened weeks and months in some cases in advance from games releasing in the Nintendo Switch generation, and obviously Nintendo's going to do everything they can to stop that from being a repeat situation in this console generation. So we'll have to wait and see if this checks out long term, but that's what it's sounding like for now. So moving on from there, couple little clarifications, and we're once again referencing Stealth over at X. You have the Switch 2 logo isn't included in the Summer Game Fest partner list because third parties are announcing Switch 2 games. Switch games were announced last year without a Switch logo. Nintendo is involved, could be a Nintendo Direct ad or something else, we don't know. And this is kind of to clear up some of the confusion around the dialogue online. Some people are seeing the Summer Game Fest logo with Nintendo Switch 2 included, and people are just dismissing that as Nintendo is showing up with third-party announcements at Summer Games Fest. That's clearly all this is, and nothing to get excited about. And as Stealth points out, that actually hasn't been the case before. We've seen third-party announced games for Nintendo Switch, but we have not seen a Nintendo Switch logo. Nintendo is officially going to participate at some level in Summer Game Fest for the first time this year. We just don't know what level that is. In some cases, we've seen Sony State of Plays and Microsoft Game Showcases actually have a Summer Game Fest like watermark, and it was basically just Jeff Keighley getting them to agree to be part of the event, if you will, but they're kind of still doing their own thing. So is there a Nintendo Direct around the corner and it's just going to have a Summer Game Fest splash logo at some point that pops up that says it's a part of that celebration? Maybe, but it could also just be Nintendo in the Summer Game Fest presentation in some capacity, maybe even just something like an updated Donkey Kong Bonanza trailer or a small first party reveal that we don't know about, and or just a sizzle reel, a paid ad spot for all the Nintendo Switch 2 games coming to the console, and a little bit of a more direct hands-on presentation of a trailer from Nintendo, and that's all we can expect. So they're gonna be there in an official capacity for the first time, but I do think it's worth clearing up some of that confusion. It's not the same thing as what we've seen them do in years past, because their logo has never been officially a part of the partner list before. Okay, from here, moving on to a game chat. Kind of like a clarification, because you probably saw some controversy with people, being upset that you have to register a phone number to basically use Game Chat. That is the case, but as Necro Felipe points out here, Game Chat on Switch 2 requires a phone number only for security authentication via SMS on user registration. End of controversy. All he's saying there is you literally do it once to essentially go through and authenticate that you're a real person. They're going to tie to your account to your phone number at some point as a security authentication, and then you're done with it. So not really a big deal. And the very last thing I want to highlight in this video, just a very quick leak update type of situation. Maybe this is going to come to fruition, maybe not, but you can see this headline over at Our Gaming Leaks and Rumors where it says the Nintendo Switch 2 may support custom music based on WWE 2K25 data mining. So here's the long and short of it. If you have music stored on your Nintendo Switch 2 console, you can use these tracks for the entry soundtrack. So that's kind of the line of text that's been discovered via the data mining here. And it's unclear if these will be soundtracks you have to buy through the eShop or have on the Nintendo Switch Music app with the NSO sub, or if you can have your own music stored on the console. So you might remember, if you're like me, back from the OG Xbox days, one of the coolest things about that console is you could literally put in a CD-ROM, dump the music files to the console, and you could boot up a game and play your own custom music in a lot of different games on the original Xbox. A really cool thing that it felt like you were PC gaming even though it was console. And that's something that we really haven't seen return or be a focus for any consoles. I don't think Nintendo's going to let you play just whatever music on any playlist or anything like that. But I do think there's a shot that maybe we can have some kind of Nintendo Music app integration. And if you want to listen to a Link to the Past soundtrack while you're playing WWE 2K25, maybe that's a possibility. This is not confirmed, but it is something that's in data mining code. So kind of an interesting one. So let me know in the comments down below what you make of all the different stories we talked about today. Where is your hype level sitting as we get closer to the Nintendo Switch 2 launch? Are you trying to still hunt down a console and secure yours for a day one purchase, or are you somebody who already has a pre-order? And what games are you most excited to hop into after you get your Switch 2 console? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.